When we think of the best Puerto Rican boxers in history, I think of their heart, fighting spirit, and a mix of flair in their style. For Miguel Cotto, this is precisely what he had. All the tools in the box to be a success in arguably the hardest sport. Cotto himself had an exciting career and a style that he developed over the years and adapted to each opponent he faced. In Cotto's early career, he was your typical come-forward pressure fighter, but as he developed over the years, he became a beautiful boxer-puncher where he refined his skills and approach. In this boxing style breakdown today, I'm going to be taking a look at the development of the Puerto Rican fighter and how he developed into this tremendous boxer-puncher by the time he finished his career. But first off, let's have a quick look at Cotto's background. Originally born in Rhode Island to Puerto Rican parents, he relocated to Puerto Rico when he was 2. This is when he got into boxing as a young boy, as he trained with his uncle to help him lose weight. And in no way he anticipated himself becoming a boxer in his career path. From here, he would go on to be one of the top amateurs Puerto Rico has ever seen, competing in some of the top international events, including the Pan American Championship and the 2000 Sydney Olympic Games. Cotto would finish his amateur career with an impressive 125-for-23 record. But after a disappointing result in the Sydney Olympics, getting knocked out in the first round, he would soon turn professional to live out his expectations and dream to become a world champion. However, a bad car accident very early in his career almost cut it short, as his right arm was broken in 9 places. Doctors at the time said it would take him at least a year and a half to recover. Cotto, however, defied all odds, returning to the ring ahead of schedule, which just shows you the determination he had for his comeback. Cotto would then continue his impressive form he started, and quickly get the inevitable comparisons with another Puerto Rican great in Felix Trinidad, and the one to take over the mantle of him as the best from Puerto Rico. As he progressed throughout his career, he pretty much fought everyone you can think of in that era, including the likes of Shane Mosley, Zab Judah, Antonio Margarito, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, Sergio Martinez, and even Canelo Alvarez. He was the first Puerto Rican boxer to win world titles in 4 weight classes, from light welterweight all the way to middleweight. In 2007 to 2009, he reached a peak active pound-for-pound ranking of 7th by The Ring magazine. And although he was never considered number 1, he certainly challenged himself against everyone he faced. The sweetest victory for me has always been that rematch over Margarito. Max Kellerman summed up Cotto's career perfectly.
When you mean money, when you bring a following to the table, the question is, do you use that to avoid competition, or are you a real prize fighter? Saying, line up the biggest prize, I'll fight that guy. Miguel Cotto was a real prize fighter. Never went home from a Cotto fight disappointed. In terms of the action the fight produced, he always gave the fans their money's worth, and by the way, sometimes he won the big one.
But now, let's take a closer analysis of Cotto's fighting style and the elements which made the Puerto Rican so successful. Miguel Cotto's boxing style was very much a changing style as he progressed throughout his career. As an amateur, he was known for being a slick out-puncher boxer with brilliant footwork. But as he turned pro in his early career, he adapted to the professional game by being a far more aggressive pressure fighter, looking to land big punches, body shots, and of course, knockouts. However, as the opposition stepped up for Cotto, he would leave himself in some vulnerable situations and get hit far too often, looking to fight back instead of clenching or using footwork to get out the way. It was in these moments when Miguel was hurt, but he still continued to fight, which saw much respect and appreciation from boxing fans. For me, it was when he started working with the likes of Emmanuel Stewart and Freddie Roach that the Puerto Rican really turned into that calculated boxer-puncher he should have always been as he moved up in weight. The experience he gathered over many years in some hard battles saw him able to use all his boxing skills to his advantage as he finished off his career with much respect. Every fight he would be in was a tough encounter for any opponent, as Cotto could adapt and change his approach to what was in front of him, But now let's take a look at the specific areas that made Cotto such a delight to watch in the ring. The stance. Now the first area I want to point out about Cotto was his very good high guard textbook stance. When at mid to close range, he would keep his guard in a higher position, ready to block incoming shots, but would also have his strong lead hand just edging forward, ready to throw the jab or throw lead hooks, while the right would just be in front of his chest ready to catch shots, block hooks or return fire. The chin would also be for the most part tucked in from mid to close range, while the lead foot was in line with his rear heel, shoulder width apart, while his weight would evenly balance from both feet as he would like to change from attack to defense using a more bounce step. He would also change his guard from time to time to mix up the angle to throw his jab, while also even getting behind his lead shoulder when using defense. Overall, Cotto's stance and brilliant fundamentals helped towards his success in the ring. The jab. As the old saying goes, the jab is the most important punch in boxing. In my opinion, this is what helped Miguel Cotto be so successful. He would use the jab to help push back his competitors to the ropes, so he could use and set up his combination punches, or use that famous left hook. It also helped that Cotto was in fact left-handed, fighting out of an orthodox stance, making those punches much heavier and more dangerous for the opponent. The other thing I love about Cotto's jab is that he really tried to vary it up throughout his career. This would include body jabs, power jabs stepping in with it, double jabs, and hooking off the jab. However, I will say he did have some flaws, including maybe not using enough head movement and feinting or probing with it often. He's even said himself he favoured the power of it. When he faced better opponents like Manny Pacquiao or Floyd Mayweather, they were able to work out his actions and rhythm when he would throw it. Despite these flaws sometimes, the fact someone like his former coach Emmanuel Stewart identified the strength of his jab is a great compliment to show how good it was.
To that. But mainly making him concentrate on his left jab, because he has a very, very strong left jab, and to keep balance, to not have his legs so far apart and his head down so low. And everything else is working very good, but it's been very easy to train with him.
Rhythm. One of the other things I want to address around Cotto was his tremendous use of setting his rhythm in the ring, especially in the prime of his career. For those that are unclear about rhythm in boxing, you could define it as the timing of repeated movement patterns. It is used for footwork movement, upper body movement, punching, or a combination of all of them. All you need to do is even watch his old training sessions of him shadowboxing to see him in full beautiful flow. Just see how Cotto uses his footwork, feints, upper body movement, and even his punch variation. And you would see how this would transfer in the ring for him. Rhythm is something that takes time to develop, and Cotto developed it throughout his whole career and fine-tuned it as he progressed. Personally, I feel he would offset his opponent's rhythm by doing things like level changes or even foot feints. Pressure fighter. Now this was definitely a style of fighting Cotto used in his early professional career, which a lot of young and up and coming fighters end up doing as they build up their records. Cotto was no different. He would primarily use his jab as just discussed to push back his competitor to the ropes, before setting up those power shots and combinations, which would get through more often than not. When he would have an opponent hurt, it wasn't about rushing in with punches, but instead taking his time edging closer and closer with his feet, so he would then be in the best position to throw those powerful shots and then get out the way. Too many times you'll see fighters rush in when an opponent is hurt by throwing unnecessary punches. Cotto very much for the most part is a lot more calculated in doing so. I also like how Cotto's stance was perfect for applying that pressure, making sure his foot was pointed towards his opponent as he would close them down, and his lead hand always slightly edged forward, ready to set up those attacks and set up those punches. The left hook and combinations. Without a doubt, Cotto's favourite punch to land was that big left hook. As discussed earlier, Cotto would use his strong lead hand to get him into a position to throw this punch. Once in position, he would usually throw a right hand before firing the left hook, which is a common follow-up for most fighters. This is because the transfer of weight the right hand forms adds more power to the hook. When on the inside though, you would see him throw lead hooks by taking a slight step to the left of his opponent before firing to get a better angle at the body or head. The other area people don't talk enough about Cotto was his tremendous combination punching. He would be terrific at setting up combos to create an opening around the guard or getting to the body of his competitor. One of my favourites of all time has to be this beauty versus Manny Pacquiao.
He has been knocked down like by Ricardo Torres.
Really a 10-8 round, huh?
Cotto answered with a nice uppercut. Hook to the body, uppercut.
Southpaw slayer and switch hitter. Arguably two of Cotto's best performances in his career came against Southpaws Zab Judah and Sergio Martinez. In the fight against Judah, we saw Cotto get caught coming into range at the start of the fight against the bigger reach of Judah as he tried to land his big power jabs. However, the thing I loved most about this fight was Cotto clearly decided enough was enough and turned up the heat, trying his best to get on the inside so he could apply those hooks and combinations against him. Another trick he would do against Southpaws was stepping in with his lead hook. Usually in orthodox versus southpaw encounters, you're encouraged to get your lead foot outside the southpaw's foot. For Miguel, he would instead step in when throwing, which worked a treat. We also saw this done expertly in his fight versus Sergio Martinez later in his career. He was a lot more calculated in his approach this time. Instead of rushing in, he would look to feint, level change before stepping in and throwing the left hook, which caught Martinez multiple times. Now in terms of switch hitting, Cotto was obviously naturally left-handed. You would see him from time to time change up his attacks to a southpaw stance. Cotto for the most part would try and stick to his base of an orthodox stance, and I feel a lot of fighters that lead with their stronger hands seem to do very well. For example, Andre Ward, Oscar De La Hoya, Usyk, Lomachenko, just to name a few. But probably one of the best fights of Cotto switching his stance was against Judah. Turning southpaw and constantly switching in the later rounds completely confused Judah as he couldn't get a grip of what Cotto would do next, also giving Cotto the opportunity to land from different angles. Footwork and defense. The greatest phase of footwork is the coordination of the hands and feet. When the hands and feet work together automatically, the art of moving is perfection itself. Now this was something Cotto would do with his footwork, particularly when he was on the offense, as he would use his feet, balance and motion to put him in a position to attack from range, create angles, or create power for his bigger punches. However, when boxing on the outside, you'd probably see him sometimes resemble Ali's footwork, as Cotto would usually look to circle on the inside, waiting to time his opponent with his own jab or mistime any mistakes they would make. It would also allow Miguel to quickly cover distance while on the outside to reset himself before his next attack, or he would simply do this to give him a chance to have a breather from his opponent's attacks. You would also see Cotto use a bounce step, which also helps him to change direction quickly, and he would use this when he was on the edge of his opponent's reach to get out of range. Other fighters that used this successfully included the likes of Salvador Sanchez or Manny Pacquiao as other good examples. Defensively, Cotto was traditional and old school in the sense he would use a high guard defense and footwork as his main line of defense. I feel maybe as he came forward he could have had slightly better upper body movement, but I do feel for the most part taking shots on the guard, using footwork to get out of the way would help him in most cases. You'd even sometimes see him get behind his lead shoulder, as I discussed earlier. With all I've gone through, you can definitely tell Cotto was a fighter who evolved into a brilliant boxer puncher. Interestingly, watching him fight in his early amateur days, you can see him fight in a more out-puncher style, and as he progressed later in his career, he definitely brought back some of this into his style again. Cotto without a doubt could punch and also get himself in some competitive battles, but he was so elegant in his motion when doing this. Miguel Cotto for me is a fighter who should be celebrated much more in my opinion. I feel the vast majority of those in the boxing world really took to Cotto, as there was no fluff or bullshit around him. He came to box, he came to fight, he came to put on a show, and he came for his people and his family. And that is why you should be inspired and study this all-time great. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Cotto's career. Was there a particular fight or moment you enjoyed? I'd love to know. If you want more like this, make sure to check out some of my other boxing style breakdowns. As always guys, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.